Hello, and thank you for joining us for the University of Georgia Small Business Development Center's Conquering a Business Crisis. We hope this presentation will help you deal with whatever crisis you and your business is facing. I'm Ruby Riesinger, the Area Director and Business Consultant of the University of Georgia Small Business Development Center's Dekalb office. We cover Dekalb and Rockdale counties in Georgia. So when we started creating this PowerPoint, we wanted to make sure that we covered all the different areas that would assist you in dealing with whatever crisis you may face. And we thought it's only fitting for us to actually start with some leadership quotes, something to inspire you. Because goodness knows, when you're in the middle of a crisis, you are stressed out. And that's when you have to be a leader, right? So the few things that I found online, and there were a bazillion, but I tried to pick something that I thought would actually match what we're doing here. And of course, Gandhi, you must be the change you want to see in the world, came up pretty immediately. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. It's topical always when you want to change something. And certainly we want to see some change from what we're going through in a crisis situation. Then I also saw FDR's the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And there's certainly a lot of fear when you're dealing with a crisis, business or otherwise. JFK's great, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I don't know that one exactly fit. It's a good quote, but it's not what I was really looking for. So I kept looking and ran across even more, all these different quotes. My favorite ones that I actually found that I thought fit though, Martin Luther King Jr. had a quote that said, for a different type of crisis, but certainly it fits here too, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, keep moving. That certainly fits crisis management presentation, doesn't it? Because we have to keep moving. It was when I found that quote that I found this other one that actually inspired me myself. It said, I came to the conclusion that there is an existential moment in your life when you must decide to speak for yourself. Nobody else can speak for you. And that's why I decided, since none of these quotes quite fit exactly what I was trying to say for the presentation, how about I make my own? I'm going to speak for myself here. So a good leader tells everyone that things are going to be fine. A great leader shows everyone how to be fine. And it's time for you to be great. It's very simple, very straight and to the point. I know it's not like astounding or deep, but it's important for you to be great. So when looking at the crisis or crisis at hand, there are many different types of crises that we can go through. There's, of course, natural disasters like the tornado. Well, with the tornado, all you can really do is dive into your storm cellar, pray, and respond to the aftermath. It's basically here without much warning, but it's over quickly. And also we know what to expect. I mean, we've seen Wizard of Oz. We have seen Twister. We've seen movies. So it's out there and we at least know what to expect. It's terrible. It's devastating in many cases, but it is something that we have been through before. And with a hurricane, you typically have some advance warning. If nothing else, Jim Cantori's walking around outside with some paper stuck to his leg because there's a hurricane coming. And believe me, if he shows up in your neighborhood, you know it's time to get out of the way. But with the flooding or financial crisis like this current one, the pandemic, it may be that you have no inkling that it was going to hit. You have no idea what to expect, and you don't know what's going to happen afterwards. So the event could actually have some advance warning or not, but it may last a long time. It's really the uncertainty because we've not been through it before. So what we want to tell you during this presentation is the key to getting through all of this is to plan ahead well in advance. You know, before the spring tornado season in the Midwest or hurricane season in the Atlantic Gulf of Mexico area hit, they have to plan for the worst case scenarios. And to have a strategy in place for recovery afterwards is key to your survival and to your business's survival. And that's what the UGA SBDC hopes to provide for you, not only in this presentation, but through our services. If you haven't heard of us, then welcome. We want you to check us out. There's all kinds of great resources. They're at www.georgiasbdc.org. There's a local office near you. We're funded in part by the SBA, but we're not the SBA. We're actually a public service outreach unit of the University of Georgia. And our mission as the UGA SBDC is to enhance the economic well-being of Georgians by providing a wide range of educational services for small business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs. Our vision is to be the trusted resource for transforming Georgia businesses. We have more than 17 offices across the state of Georgia, ranging from Rome in the northwest corner of Georgia, all the way down to Valdosta in the southernmost point, and on the coast over in Savannah and Brunswick. Everything in between. We've had 5 metro offices, as a matter of fact, too, in Atlanta. So you're always going to be able to find a UGA SBDC office within a short drive from your business. You can also find us online, and we're meeting virtually right now, every time you need us. We want you to turn to us. We're here to help you during the good times and the bad. And not just for crisis, we want to help you with your planning. We want to help you with your business ideas. So for this presentation, we need to start with what is the most vital thing to getting through all of these potential hazards. Leadership. That's right. It's one of the key things that you have to be a good leader and you have to lead through the crisis. And as a leader within your business, there's certain things you have to do that make your business strong and ready for any sort of event, whether it's crisis or just day-to-day doing business. So start with the basic underlying rule of holding everyone in your company accountable for themselves, for their job duties, and for their actions within the company during the crisis and all the time. And this includes you. You as the business owner must exemplify and embody your company's brand in action. So be mindful of how you're perceived. You want to make sure that your image is in line with your mission and your values. Decide upon your company's core values and stick with them. You need to do that from the very beginning, from your business plan, and make sure that all your decisions and your policies reflect and align with these same values. Practice what you preach all the time, even when the camera is not rolling, which is there a time that the camera's not rolling nowadays? I mean, we have one in our smartphone, so even children are walking around with cameras. It's always on. It's time to shine or shrink. Attend some training programs ahead of time and create a crisis management plan before the crisis happens. And you need to practice these often so that they're top of mind, so that it's rote memorization, so you know what to do. Refine your skills in business often and keep up because change happens all the time. That is the one constant, is that it's changing. Keep up. So set aside time for planning and problem solving to improve operations daily, weekly, monthly, annually, and then know how to implement those during a crisis. Communication is key. Keep it open. Make sure it's honest with all of your employees, your suppliers, your vendors, and your customers. They all need to know what to expect from you, how you're going to do business, what are you going to do. Be open to suggestions too. Know who you can trust. Maybe talk to some other business owners in your network. Find someone you want to emulate, somebody who's been through this or someone who's doing a great job handling it. Remember, we're all in it together and we're all better together too. And be sure and contact your local UGA SBDC to help. We have business experts throughout the state of Georgia and we're enthusiastic about helping. And do we have all the answers? Maybe not, but we will find an answer for you because we know the experts. We have the partners, and we want to make sure that you're strong. Best practices of a leader. Well, sometimes it's tough to be a leader, even in the best of times. But when things go awry, they're all looking at you, and the leader has to shine. You have to do your best to keep your team focused on creating and executing solutions, things that work. Think. Begin by taking the lead. Accept your role and step up. Project honesty and confidence, stay calm, steer the team into action, assuring others that the best way out of the situation is to find a solution. As a leader, it is incumbent upon you to keep your cool. Having all the answers, again, like I said before, it's impossible, but having a calm approach, it's imperative. You hired your team, you made sure you had good people, you put them in a good place, you made sure that you knew what your strengths were. So now it's time to rely on that. Control the chaos. Panic does no good, and rational thinking is the way to go. It's the rule of the day. Action is always better than reaction. Assemble your team, assign the duties, set the deadlines, communicate with them what you want, what you expect, break the big problem up into little bite-sized pieces, because how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So figure out all the different little strategy pieces and then create a plan of attack. Things change quickly and they change often. So hopefully you've run through enough scenarios for different crisis situations that you can take little bits and pieces of that and assemble something to do right now, adapt and pivot, overcome. Surround yourself with data, good data, and assign duties to the people who hold the talents within your organization or within the agencies who disseminate the data. This is generally done before a crisis, but you may find right now that you need to supplement your team. And listen to the facts of the situation. Identify and evaluate options and move forward as a team. Communicate with everyone, which will help eliminate fear and rumor mongering. Rumor mongering can kill a company too, because you have to make sure that everyone feels assured of what's going on. Be aware that your tone and your body language need to match what you're saying. Remain calm and in charge, limiting the mixed messages. Remain positive too. The changes and reactions won't be forever. Even if they are, the new norm could be that it turns out a little better for you. You have solutions. You have a good business. You have good sound principles. Things always change. Changing and talking to others is a key. Just make sure you talk to someone you trust. And then take care of yourself too. You have to exercise and rest and make sure that you remain healthy, because if you can't think straight, if you're not resting, you're not able to pivot, you're not able to change. The scope and the scale of the crisis are important things to know. You have to examine the situation before setting your course of action. And like I said, it's better to plan before it happens, but that's not always possible. So how quickly a leader can organize points to ponder during the crisis, that's when their brain gets emotional and tired. But if you've got kind of a plan in place and you know what you're going to hit on, at least you've got a starting point. So think about the core issues of the problem. How did we get here? When did it happen? What exactly happened in this crisis? What is it? Is it a long or short-term problem? And what's the crisis level and scale of the event? How many people did it involve? How many people does it affect? Do we have history that we can apply? Is our business model still viable? Or do we have to pivot or adapt to work within the new constraints created by the crisis? An example of this are all the many different businesses who recently began to sell their goods online who never had that service before, or even maybe offered curbside service, or even like us here at the UGA SBDC doing a webinar. This is my first one. Well, my first one recorded, so I'm trying to look good, even with all the hair and makeup issues of not having a full cast. I'm a visual person. I like to draw out things, and a lot of times if I'm going through a scenario trying to create best solutions, I create an if-then flow chart, maybe even put it on a dry erase board so that I can think through it. I'm a doodler. If you're like me, you probably do need to draw something out, but get your team in on it and make sure that you strategize and prioritize, okay? So there's many different areas that require leaders to step up and lead, but none are more critical than your business during a crisis event. This presentation is going to cover some of the most crucial and frequently asked about issues for these important topics: cash management, pricing and cost containment, supply chain management, and marketing. And this one scares people a lot of the times, but it's very important. If you don't manage your cash, your choices become limited very quickly. So cash management is where we're going to start. Before you can begin to correct, you must assess. Do you have data? Start with your company. Focus right there on the here and now. Gather all of your data for the key areas: financial data on history and current, where you're sitting, where were you a year ago, should you be there, your customer records, vendor and supplier information, your market outlook, what's changed, how did it change, define it. Run an analysis on how you can currently meet the needs or rectify the negative changes within your own company and your own resources. Is the data that you have reliable and accurate? Are you collecting the right information? Do you need something else? Do you know how to read and use the information to make the decisions? And here's something that's kind of new, but not new. We always thought about protecting your data and your assets more as a physical form. And that's important, especially during a natural disaster. But we also have to look at IT and financial and inventory data. And is it in the cloud? And where is it stored? Do you have backup data? What happens if it's stolen or lost or even hacked? So those are things that you really need to have a plan for and have it in place well ahead of it happening. The UGA SBDC can help you with all of these areas and situations. I really urge you to call your local office today. Well, cash flow is the lifeblood of your business. If you don't have cash flow, even if your business is healthy and growing, your options get very limited very quickly because you're just sitting there waiting for the next check or payment to come in before you can move ahead. And just having good sales doesn't mean that you have good cash flow. Growing sales can actually hurt cash flow. Recording a sale, if they're not paying right away, if it's on account, it doesn't provide you with cash that you need to keep going. It's just future money. You still have to spend cash to operate your business. One really strong recommendation we have is to use a bookkeeper or an accountant services to assist you with the accuracy of financial data and the ability to generate predictions. But if you don't know what you're looking at or what they're telling you with those numbers, then it's hard to plan. So you need to develop the ability to understand the financials and then make business decisions based on that data. CPAs, unless they're in-house working just directly for you, usually work for a lot of people, and they're more focused on making sure that their reports to you are accurate and the numbers that they report to you tell the story the way they see it. But you're going to need to be able to interpret what does that mean over time and what do the fluctuations mean and make predictions and kind of make a plan. So review your financials, your credit policy, and your customer data on a monthly basis. It's a key to really pay attention to these things during a crisis. It's all the time important, but it's really important right now when you're going through all these different changes and challenges. Optimal cash flow management requires daily monitoring of financial data by you. So recently I helped a client look at their financial data and compared it with some other like-sized businesses in their industry, because that's one of the tools and the services that we can offer at the UGA SBDC. And we discussed how much money they had tied up in their inventory and how they monitor this area of their financials. And they didn't really have any monitoring mechanisms in place. They realized just how much money they had tied up in their inventory. That's money just sitting there. And they couldn't even keep well enough handle on things that are going on in their inventory to see the items that were selling well were selling out, and they didn't have enough of those. I think we've all shopped recently and found deficiencies in stock here or there, but it's never more important than it is during a crisis. I'm thinking about toilet paper and hand sanitizer. But anyway, by analyzing things and watching their money flow through and then bottleneck in certain areas, they made some adjustments. They tweaked their business, and that freed up some money for them to have help on the way for the rainy days, for the crisis, for making changes. You can make decisions that can make an accurate and decisive move and take advantage of opportunities if you're ready. Having accurate and up-to-date records are important all the time, but just like the SBA EIDL loan that everyone was trying to fill out recently, if you didn't have your 2019 financial records ready, then it was really difficult to fill out the information. So even though the IRS extended the date for filing, you had to have that information to be able to fill out the application. So it's important to know these things and keep a record of what's going on up to date. It's much easier to correct a cash flow problem early than before it becomes a real crisis. When it's a real crisis, then you're scrambling to survive. Cash flow predictions can be key, and accurate predictions when compared to actual performance can alert you to early problems. Early recognition, as we say, is always an effective key to correction. So on this one, cash flow in a crisis, isn't it obvious? Cash is king. And to have a cash flow in a crisis means that you have to be ready to roll with the punches. Bankers always suggest that your business needs to keep clear access to your cash before the crisis. Examples of this include lines of credit, receivable factors or accelerators, and business credit cards. So let's take a look at some quick pros and cons, I'm just making up words now, of the different liquidity types. So keep in mind that you need to write down all of your options, keep a pro and con sheet for yourself, and map the priorities way ahead of time. Lines of credit, they're available from multiple sources. They're easy to access via online portals and provide immediate cash. Lines of credit must be revolved each 12 months, typically between 0 and 10%. And lines of credit must have a rest period. That means they remain at a reduced level for at least 30 consecutive days. Should these requirements not be met, a banker will typically change the line of credit to a term loan with the term typically 3 to 5 years, and this should be stated in your commercial loan agreement or promissory note. Term payments will be significantly higher than your interest-only payments on the LOC, and you could lose access to the line, which will intensify your cash flow crunch. Something to be aware of. Factors and revenue accelerators. Well, they allow you to reduce cash flow cycle for business receivables and secure cash on account sales faster. Typically, they're invisible to their customers, so they don't know that you're factoring their payments. It's a tool for you, not them, but they can be cumbersome operation or slow pay. Like if you have someone that's on a 90-day pay, then this is a good tool to help you get that money a little faster without waiting for their payment. Very complex financial product, though, with virtually no regulation. It's not a loan, but a discounted sale of future receivables. So usury and other banking regulations do not apply. And I want to caution you, they can be extremely expensive. Effective interest rates can exceed 300%. So you really need to read the fine print. Make sure you have all the understanding of what you're agreeing to. Maybe have it reviewed by a competent third party before you sign anything. In fact, don't sign an agreement you don't understand. We don't offer legal advice at the SBDC, but we would recommend different avenues for you. We would tell you to talk to a small business attorney before signing anything of a legal nature anyway. So just be sure that you know what you're getting into. Also, commercial credit cards. We mentioned that, and people are very familiar with credit cards. They're easy to secure. You can get them from multiple sources. They're easy to understand. They're accepted by a high number of vendors. It doesn't require for you to rest or revolve any typical types of commercial lines of credit, but the interest rates could be high, and heavy utilization will meet short-term need, but it will increase your cash flow pressures the following months as the minimum payments increase with use. So you have to be careful. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying just know what you're getting into and plan it out. Write it out. We always say failing to plan is planning to fail, but in this case, there are some businesses who plan to succeed and still fail. Usually it's due to a lack of cash flow. So it's very important for part of your survival and recovery plan always. Don't be scared to talk to your lenders about changes to terms. Lenders want to earn interest, not sell your collateral. That's not what they're in the business of doing. They take the collateral to make sure that you'll pay, but most will work with you. So talk to your banker. Banks are in the business of making loans and then having you pay those off. Bankers are also our neighbors and our community partners. Chances are they're going through something similar if it's a widespread crisis. And so if you have a strong business and history with them, the people you employ are your neighbors and your friends and your community members, you're generating economic growth, sit down and have a talk with them. Discuss interest only IO periods, the period of time you spend by paying just the interest rate when you take out a loan, and make sure that you understand everything, that you understand all of the different rates they're throwing at you and the payment deferment, skip a pays, all that stuff. They may be able to offer you a number of different things to help your business along. I suggest that's a lot of bankers out there are your partners in business anyway. And another positive, close monitoring to your business is in good times, everyone has cash flow, and that's the time it's easier to sell an asset. So you don't wait till the last minute when everybody else is scrambling and trying to sell and accessing capital too. So if you sell off under or non-performing assets early before they have no market, you could be gaining some cash for your flow. And also you can discuss with others how important it is to maintain good customer records, not just your records. So if you have vendors, you may want to look at your vendor chain. You want to make sure that you talk to your customers about how they're paying you. Pace your slow paying customers on COD or prepayment. Consider moving cash on sale. Of course, trust is key in times of crisis. Remember, there's 5 C's of credit when you're talking to a banker, and one of them is character. Let's go over those 5 C's real quickly too. Capacity. So that's the first C. Does your business have the financial capacity to support debt and expenses? Typically, a business needs about $1.25 or $1.25 of income to support every dollar of debt service, and that provides just a little bit of cushion for your business to be able to absorb the unexpected expenses or a downturn in the economy. They look for that. They also look at capital. Your business owns capital assets like cash, equipment. Is there enough there to support the financing that you want? You and others have invested capital in your business. So how much? If you're not committed, why should the bank be? Collateral. Accounts receivable, inventory, cash, equipment, commercial real estate, they're all forms of collateral that banks leverage to secure loans. In addition to looking at the value of your collateral, the bank will consider any existing debt or liabilities that you still owe on that too, so keep that in mind. And conditions, another C. The state of the economy, the trends in your industry, pending legislation relative to your business, all of these are conditions that are considered by the bank. These are often out of your control and may affect your ability to make payments, but they are factors that you need to pay attention to and kind of be aware of what's going on. And finally, character, work experience, experience in your industry, personal credit history. Those are all character traits that the bank will consider. Your personal integrity and good standing and the integrity and standing of those closely tied to the success of your business are critically important. That's why they want to check that out. I'm going to throw in one more because I think this one makes a world of difference, and that's communication. Your willingness to communicate openly with your banker about what's going on and where you're headed and what your plans are. If you talk to your banker and your other financial advisors about the opportunities and challenges your business faces, then they're not going to feel like you're hiding anything. So before I move on, I want to chat for a second about taxes. You know that old adage, there's only two things in life that are sure, death and taxes. Well, we're working on a way to extend life, but I bet if we figure it out, there's going to be a tax to it. So face it, it's just a part of life. They don't ever go away on their own. Do not or ever ignore the letters or demands of payment for taxes. Make sure you pay your taxes. If you're behind on your taxes, then work on it, get ahead, talk to them, work out a plan. Recently, I worked with a client who inherited his business from his family, and it was a profitable business, but he found out that they hadn't been paying taxes for years. And when he started getting little love letters from the IRS, that's when he contacted me. And, you know, they don't really send out love letters. They send out reminders. And then they swept his account and they garnished his income tax returns, and they prevented him from taking out SBA-backed loans to grow his business. And actually, he had to scramble to pay his vendors because they put him on COD because they didn't believe he could pay. He got it worked out. We worked together very closely on things. Of course, I don't have a magic wand, but I will tell you that through his hard work and perseverance, his business is still going. And he will tell you himself, you can't run, you can't hide, just take care of it and put that out of your mind. Don't worry about it because just pay your taxes. Get a tax professional in between you and the IRS. Don't take them on by yourself. And here's another really ugly thing to talk about, but it needs to be said. Theft. It's an ugly word. It can be a reality, though. You have to make sure you have good financial controls of your money going in, going out, limit the payment authorization and check writing ability to only essential staff, increase your scrutiny of bank reconciliation and payroll data, install cameras or other inventory monitoring systems to prevent losses. There's lots of little things you can do to make sure that you're not being robbed blind behind your back. Making hard decisions, this is a touchy subject because we never want to talk about this. It's hard. Layoffs, it's never a good decision in your mind. You don't want to have to deal with it, but even though it's not fun, you may have to do it. So you need to have a plan, have a written policy and procedure for potential layoffs. This is going to provide you protection as you move forward as the employer. Proper policy and procedure can reduce liability and emotional impact to both employees and employer if they both understand the process of how layoffs are determined and who's going to be impacted. Having a predetermined plan will eliminate appearance of favoritism or discrimination, possibly keep you out of a lawsuit. Make sure you give examples, scenarios of how predetermined staff reduction policies and procedures make the process easier for employees and business owners. So you can contact the Georgia Department of Labor. They have a wealth of information to share with you about fair labor laws, unemployment programs. They can even help you with some steps to take in designing a reduction process, but do it before it's necessary so it's already in place, preferably already in your company handbook. Employers can incur significant liabilities if they fail to follow all applicable labor regulations in regards to ending an employment arrangement and dismissing an employee. So there's a lot of misconceptions going on all the time about HR. So start with the experts, and then also I always recommend that you start with your local UGA SBDC, because the great part about us is it's not just me. When you work with me, you're not just getting me. When you work with a different counselor, you're not just getting that consultant, you're getting the entire network. And we have HR specialists here. I call on them frequently with my clients, and we stay up to date. We try to make sure that we have good connections. And again, if we don't have the answer, we know who to contact. Well, unless you are selling fine wines or high-end pieces of art, your inventory does not improve with age. It's a bit more like raw fish. So supply chain management, huge, huge part of what is going on with your effective cash management. Oh, and I just caught a misspelling. I'll go back to that later. So if a crisis causes your sales to decline sharply, you need to take action, cancel orders, reduce inventory. If the crisis causes a jump in demand after your product or service, like Home Depot after a hurricane, or toilet paper in every store in the world right now, then how you get a hold of the products is important. So do you have people lined up? Do you have enough people to handle it? Do you have a stockpile? Do you have other vendors, alternatives? Some things are predictable and some aren't. So you kind of have to plan for all of the if-thens. And whether you cancel orders or need more, you'll be depending on the good relationships that you have with your suppliers. If a key supplier goes out of business due to the crisis, do you have alternatives? Have you thought about that one? From a cash management point of view, think of inventory as just stacks of cash sitting there on the shelf, but you can't hand that to your employees to cover payroll. They need cash to pay the rent. So you're going to be needing some cash flow. Inventory management. Do you know the metrics that are involved with your industry? We have some help for you in that area. We know kind of what the flow should be, or at least we can help you look at it. Restaurants and clothing retailers and manufacturers have vastly different inventory requirements. If not, how do you know what you're trying to achieve? If you're not sure, ask your SBDC consultant. You can do regular inventory checks. You can do quarterly. You can do all kinds of different systems, but you need to make sure that you do them monthly during a time of crisis, because you have to make sure that you're up to date on what you have and where you're headed. If you use sampling to conduct your inventories, then maybe consider a larger sample size. You're also going to be checking for damage. You're going to look for all kinds of things, statistical error. This may be a time when you have a smaller margin for error because you're having to spin on a dime and having to make up for slow delivery. If monthly isn't feasible, then consider cycle counts, where you count part of the inventory every day or week. At the end of the quarter or 6 months, you will have gone through your entire inventory, and that way you can get your system online. Make sure you understand what your entire staff and all of the numbers are telling you, and you don't have to do it alone. Well, for manufacturers, you may need a more robust inventory system process. So you could have one part of the stock that doesn't shut down your entire product line. Major inventory categories, you need to consider narrow but deep. This works well for retailers. It may make sense to have a smaller selection of products, but a larger stock of the ones you do carry. More efficient allocation of your inventory dollars, which may be limited right now, would help you out. Computer and POS systems, you need to learn how to use your systems to identify products that are low or getting low, so you can make those decisions ahead of time before you run out, and identify your slow sellers. If you're in retail, mark it down, get out of it. You want to be moving the fast pace, and you want to keep an eye on it, because those are your good sellers. And let your staff help. In a prior life, one of our consultants was a controller for the computer company. He says he was really, really busy when they did their quarterly inventories, but he personally didn't have to count a single cable or PCB. He just made sure the right person was in place to do that, and no one person could have ever gotten it done. My grandmother always used to say, many hands make light work. There you go, Grandma. I listened at least once. So your supplier relationships, you're going to need your suppliers after the crisis has passed and to get through the current situation. Don't wreck the hopefully good relationships you've built up with them through the many years. Communicate with them. Tell them in advance if you're going to pay their invoices late or maybe do a partial payment. They'll appreciate it. They'll work with you. They're having a lot of struggles from a lot of people, I guarantee it. Don't let them find out that your payment's not going to be on time by it just being not on time. That's not a good look. And you don't want them putting you on COD. Times are tough already. You need that cash flow. You need that credit that you've had for a while. Just in time inventory management may work for some people, but a lot of people are tempted to try it, but it reduces the amount of money you tie up in inventory, but it also puts a lot of pressure on you to make sure that you have excellent control of your inventory and production processes. Just in time puts all the pressure on making sure that your inventory is detailed, up to date, always checked, no margin for error, or at least a very tiny margin for error. It's really much more than just getting your products really fast from your suppliers. You have to ask yourself, are your people and your systems really up to this? Can you depend on your vendors to deliver the right product at the right time, every time, without fail? More importantly, can you depend on your employees and systems in order to get the right products at the right time, to order it correctly without fail? In a crisis situation, the right time to implement might not be now. It might not be the major change. It might be that you need to just tweak what you already have. You may have to hire additional people and upgrade your computer systems to gain the necessary level of control that you want on your inventory. And these costs may be offset from your gains and reduction of inventory. Maybe just try it in one area of your business first and see how you do with it. During General Motors strike back in 2019, they had to shut down factories earlier than they otherwise might have because they didn't have extra stocks of parts on hand in the factories because they use JIT inventory methods to minimize their inventory, and it didn't work out really well for them. So JIT works best for manufacturing companies, less so for restaurants and retailers. Operational management. These are easier to think about from for instance, POV, like for instance, in a hurricane, what would you do? For instance, what would you do here? So scale the overall situation. What's the crisis? Do you need to scale back or ramp up to meet the demands? Make sure you call your insurance carrier, do basic repairs to get the damage from worsening if it's physical damage. Look at when you can get back open for business. And then see, how has your inventory been affected? Is it damaged? Do you have to replace it? Are you running low on certain things? Are other things useless at this point? And can your people come back to work? Can you manage them remotely? Do they have laptop computers, internet access? Do you need to reduce headcount? Do you know the process so that they may file for unemployment compensation? Do you have key employees who you want to keep through and after the crisis? And for your systems, can you contact key suppliers? How about customers? Access banking data. What shape is your inventory in? Receivables, payables. I feel like pulling my hair out just reading it, right? But it's all part of it. And another thing to think about is, are your computer systems properly protected? Do you have cloud storage, offsite backups in different physical locations? And I know now that we've faced a pandemic, there are so many uncertainties. It's really hard to know where to go, where to turn, what to look at first. But one thing you know is your business. You know what you've been doing. You're an expert at your business. You've been doing it a while, so get ready to do what you do at your highest performance. People are chomping at the bit to get outside and do some things. Now's the time to prepare them, or as soon as it's over, right? So let's take a look at our next section, which is pricing and cost containment. It's really an important issue. A lot of people avoid this. They don't know how to price, so we're going to help you out a little bit. In the best of times, the ability to make the best decisions on pricing and cost containment is very much based on having the best information available. In a time of crisis, that need is magnified by the severity of the situation or the consequences of those decisions. And then when the crisis rears its ugly head, you as the business owner want to be in the best position to make the right decisions, no matter how painful they may be. That involves knowing the numbers that drive your business, the value of the product or service you offer to you or your customers or clients, and the cost and the value of your personnel. During the crisis, business owners often make quick decisions to alleviate the immediate pain they're experiencing, or maybe they're paralyzed by the fear of making bad decisions, but either scenario could be detrimental to the long-term survival of their business. So here we're going to set the movie scene. You ready? Taking you on a journey in your mind's eye. The hero is trying to disarm a live bomb whose counter is getting dangerously close to zero. See, right now, I'm Tom Cruise. Or maybe Cameron Diaz. Yeah. Okay. So the camera keeps flashing back to the faces of those or people who are going to be hurt. You know, those scenarios. Who's going to be hurt? The bomb. What's going on? The bomb. So the hero is frantically trying to determine which wire we got to cut, the red one, the blue one. What's the results? If I cut the wrong one, it's going to be devastating. It's tick, 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 boom. Well, business owners who find themselves in a crisis can relate, right? You know you have to cut something. You're just not sure where to cut. You're not sure if you cut the wrong thing, what's going to happen? What are the results? It could be devastating, right? How do you make those decisions? During a crisis, time is a resource. We all wish we had more time, but you can only do the best with what time you have. So you need to understand the key drivers of profitability. If you're a retailer, you probably already know those items that inject the biggest boost to your gross margin. So you need to know what your gross margin is overall and for different lines and products within your company. Know how often you turn over your inventory, how the different pieces move, how that affects your profitability. With that information, you could potentially work with suppliers and vendors and negotiate discounts or extended payments for your best-selling items. And if you must cut back on your production schedule, you could avoid cutbacks on those highest products, those highest profit products, those ones that are generating the money for you. Know your key money makers ahead of time and create the cutback plan for the downturn. Rank them in order. Understand the key drivers of cost and overhead. What represents the largest portion of your cost? Is it labor, raw materials, rent? What is it? Negotiate with suppliers or locate other substitute suppliers or even some lower cost alternatives. You know, it's not always about that same thing. Inferior, superior good argument. Try to compress your supply chain or shorten it in order to reduce the cost. Sometimes volume equals value. So you could be buying more of a different product that's similar from someone, and because you're buying more from them, they give you a discount. You can also reduce hourly workers, their hours. You can shorten their shifts and make sure that you're operating in the correct size facility. You can work with your landlord, negotiate a short-term reduction in rent or a rent holiday that could be appended at the end of your lease term. Could you negotiate forbearance or extensions with mortgages? That might be a good way to free up some money. Or sublease some unused space. We see this work well in shared spaces that rent small offices here in Atlanta because there's so many micro businesses. And so instead of them having to pay the high cost of rent somewhere, they kind of localize their needs. They share an area where they can meet. They share a conference room. They share lots of different things. That kind of business can work for you, that kind of business setup. So like a small manufacturing company that installed fenced compartments in their building and rented them out as inventory storage to other manufacturers who need the space, but they didn't want to lease or move to a larger facility. You could just be creative. Come up with your own scenario. Look for ways that this could work for you. Understand the key drivers of cash flow because, like we said, cash is king, especially in crisis. You're going to need that money. And then a business can survive for some time without profits. Keep that in mind, but not without cash. The cash flow is that important. Did you know that Sears was actually last profitable in 2010, but only declared Chapter 11 in 2018? They survived on cash flow for 8 years. That's pretty good illustration. So during a crisis, cash flow is typically an early casualty because you got to spend that money to keep things going. How do you manage to extend it? How do you push it to the limit? So pushing higher gross margin items could mean that you have more money coming in and you're not really adding costs by refocusing your staff to push or supersell those products. You could reduce or eliminate travel or entertainment expenses linked to non-revenue generating activities. You could reduce, or eliminate operating expenses that are not typically reviewed on a regular basis, like utility costs. Could you get a flat rate and save some money that way? Or connectivity, reducing bandwidth or pooled minute plans. What about insurance coverage? shop providers, increase deductibles, reduce premiums. There's all kinds of ways you can look at that and see, is there a money saver in there for you? Oftentimes during a crisis and when the cash flow slows to a trickle, the first solution a business owner attempts is reducing prices, but that may not always be the best decision. As a business owner, you should have a good understanding of who the people are that regularly buy your product or service and why. If you start to discount, you train them to look for the discounts. You train them to only shop during a sale. Personally, I never pay full price at Hobby Lobby or Michael's. They have trained me to look for the 50% discount. Sorry. Um, if you have a product that is not sensitive to price change, then why cut yourself out of that gross margin that you could be making? Is your product or service something that is unique? No near substitutes. If so, you have some pricing power. You should exercise it. Hold steady, confident that any near-term reduction in sales will be short-lived. Is the demand for your product or service purely price-driven? Do you always appear at the sort by price list? If you don't know what that is, then you haven't shopped online, because a lot of the online shopping is sorted this way, with the cheapest item first. So if you're doing that, you've got high competition. Your product or service is probably not unique. You could face increased competition from providers who could substitute. It's just a general item. In that case, you may need to reduce your price to maintain market and share and cash flow. Is your product or service a necessity or a near necessity? For example, after a tornado or a hurricane, or do you sell generators? Do you fix roofs? Do you sell lumber? Do you provide water pumps? Do you have toilet paper and hand sanitizer during pandemic? You can hold prices steady or even increase prices marginally on market demand, but be cognizant of lasting customer and client perceptions of how you treat them during tough times. And a word of caution, be very mindful of gouging. Customers and governments remember. There's lots of examples online. Like I read one on Facebook about a guy that bought up a bunch of hand sanitizers in Tennessee and was trying to sell it to people. It didn't go well for him. And also, don't forget about Martin Shkreli, I think is how you say his name, during the Turing Pharmaceuticals and his 7 years prison sentencing. It's illegal to gouge, so don't do that. And it's bad for your reputation and your community, so you wouldn't want to do that anyway. If your product were to disappear today, just poof, it's gone, what's going to be the customer's next best choice? Is the customer willing to buy that product over yours despite the price, or will they buy yours and wait for you? If they'll wait for you despite the price, then the demand for your product may not be sensitive. What are examples of this? Well, of course, life-saving medicine, gas. We always use gas, although it is low right now, but maybe some food products. We always want milk and bread and that kind of stuff. Maybe it's cigarettes, one of those sin tax kind of habits. Those don't seem to suffer much from price changes. The demand stays pretty high. So if it's an item kind of like that, then it might be something that you want to look at of, could you raise the price just slightly because of demand, because of need, and then help your business limp through this and get over the hump. Increasing prices may not markedly reduce sales, but use your common sense. Assume nobody else in the market is producing the same product or service, and exercise patience and maintain price discipline. One of the biggest costs of doing business is the labor cost, and often there's a 20 to 35% of sales margin. That's what your company is paying for your labor costs. They are the proverbial elephant in the room when it comes to reducing cost amid a crisis, because you don't want to hurt anybody. And given your level of production, you have to look at how many people do you have, but I know your heart's not in it. It's hard. So you have to be strategic. Look at who are your key people to help keep you running, those who you could not produce or deliver your product or service without. What's the minimum number that you need? You may have to pare down to that. Staff reductions may be needed if headcount is above your core need, and delay your hirings until your current staff is operating at full capacity. That's another thing. So as someone leaves, or if someone finds a different job, you can just save that money through attrition. Are you using your staff efficiently? Look at, are there duplications of tasks? Could that be just with one person? Does there have to be two people? Are there tasks that contractors could do rather than W-2 employees? Could your employees have dual roles versus adding another person? Could some of the roles or tasks be efficiently handled by part-timers or even by an app or service? Right sizing could reduce your payroll and benefit cost. It may be something worth checking on. Look at your staff compensation levels. Are salaries and wages in line with your peers? For example, a long tenured employee whose salary or wage has crept up over the years is now earning way above what they would on the open market. Is that something that you can look at? Are benefits being included when calculating an employee's total compensation? Because that adds up. Could benefit costs be reduced, perhaps even temporarily? Could employees share in their health care costs or opt for different plans or coverage? What about paid time off or sick leave? Could company contributions to a retirement or profit sharing plan be trimmed? It's best to lead by example. If you make any of these changes, make sure that you review and reduce the owner's salary and draws, because they're going to be looking at you as well. If I have to take this cut, what are you doing? For example, Delta, the executives took a 50% pay cut. It helps. It doesn't mean that they're not going to still be some sore issues or some feelings that don't get in the way, but it does matter because we're all looking at the leaders, right? In all situations, you need to ensure that you're aware of and compliant with all of the employment rules and regulations. And as we mentioned earlier, you want to have a plan in place ahead of time so that it's not just sprung on them willy-nilly style. So let's talk about my favorite subject, marketing. And marketing's a little different when it's a crisis time, isn't it? So despite what your company's doing, don't cut your marketing. I know that's an immediate knee-jerk reaction. A lot of times when times get tough, people think, well, I'll just cut marketing. But now is a good time to pump up the marketing. You have to know what you're doing. You have to make sure that your message is out there. So create a crisis message. You need to put out a company-wide crisis message. It's going to set the tone for your team and your customers and make sure that everybody knows where you're sitting. Your messages, though, they have to be aligned with your values, your image, and your branding. If you spend all your time focused on that you care about your customer and your policies say that and your service methods say that, but then you're not showing it, it's not going to be aligned. So make sure that everything, action, message, every piece of marketing you put out there is aligned with what you're doing and saying and what you want them to say and do about you. Be sure to focus on what your company is doing to help out and don't blame other people. The blame game just wastes time and it could make you seem callous. You want to create solutions. You want to make sure that you are part of the answer. We're going to remember those who stand out during the crisis, always. So how do you construct a message? First, you need to identify the stakeholders and the targets. So what does that mean? Okay, so your customer, you know how to talk to your customer, right? Do you know how to talk to your partners, your vendors, your stakeholders, your board, people who invest in your company, your bankers? All of these people, they all have different perceptions of your business, and you need to let them know what's going on. You need to talk to them like you would talk to a human, because that's what you're doing. But instead of sending out a one-size-fits-all, you need to really make sure that your message is targeted to your audience. Analyze specific concerns. Each stakeholder has a point of view. Therefore, they have a concern about what your message is and how it's going to affect them. Look at what you can do to feasibly take care of your production or service messages to make sure that they are told what they need to be told and that you are portraying the honest truth. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Again, I say that all the time to clients, but I think it's hard for people to form a message because they want to just put one message out there, but you don't talk to a child the same way that you talk to a grown-up, or do you? You want to make sure that you give them the message that they need to hear, how it affects them. Divide out the information into the most need to know, what they want to know, what they need to know, right? And then develop your supporting facts so that you can back up what you're saying and so that your message is accurate. Stay up to date on what's going on. Test the message. Try it out. Make sure that you have tried it on for size in front of people. Always in marketing, we like control groups. We like to know, what do you think about this? How do you feel about this? What is your feeling of this particular message or this particular look or this ad? So you're going to use that same skill here too. You have to realize that you don't want to create confusion. You want to make sure that your message is what you're trying to tell them. It's kind of like double translation. You say it to them and then have them say it back to you so that you understand what they heard. You may need to adjust your message that way too. After you've done all your prep, you deliver your message to the actual person that you meant it for or the stakeholder. And there's lots of ways to do that. Sometimes it's delivered deliberately through a news release or maybe an email or social media posting. Sometimes it's in action. A lot of us remember Hurricane Katrina and how a lot of different beer companies stepped up and bottled some highly sought out water and gave those to the survivors. That was a big message about how much that company cares. And I think that we remember those kinds of things long term. So even helping out, it provides the message of who you are and where you sit in the crisis. And who would have thought Zoom would have been such a front runner during a time of need? But during this pandemic that we recently experienced, and some of us are still experiencing, they may have really been at the forefront for many years, but I didn't pay attention to them. I didn't use a lot of Zoom, but now here I am spending all day trying to figure out how to record myself so that I can get a message out. So if there had been other businesses who thinking ahead of ways to telework, they might have been in the forefront too. There's lots of different ways to think of different scenarios and figure out how your business can deliver a service that it may not be completely served now, or maybe you can do it better. So solidify your positioning. So be flexible. More best practices. You got to be flexible. Watch for new trends. Look for opportunities to provide solutions. Information changes. Customers need all kinds of different things, and it may change over time. What happened last month or last week may not work tomorrow, may not work today. Constant updates, new information are vital for business owners who want to apply for or qualify for different programs. You need to stay up to date with what's going on, what your customers need. Look for new trends and look for opportunities to provide solutions. Exceptional marketing focuses on the solution your business provides to customer needs or desires, and look for ways to provide new or unique solutions to new situations. Have you ever used online marketing and they'll say, if you bought this, you may also be interested in this? Be flexible. Look for things like that where you can pair up. Watch analytics data for changes that you can drive your revised strategy. Review it, check it daily, use your team, and be prepared to communicate with lots of different platforms. We're not all on the same multimedia or omni-channel or social media platform. So it may be that some people are easier reached by text. I know my kids won't answer the phone. I guess they kind of answer the phone when mom calls, but I usually get the, Mom, why don't you just text me? I don't want to talk. And so it may be the texting or SMS or maybe through an app or any kind of different platform that's going on. We all know Facebook. We know LinkedIn. We know Instagram. How are you talking to your customers and to your public right now? You need to make sure that you're using multiple channels to get the message out. And depending on the situation, you may even want to use the news or the community media outlets. Just one thing is you need to be intentional. Make sure that you identify your key target customers and consider a niche focus. Don't lose sight of your target audience. Take a look further, segmenting your customers into different little segments so that you can understand how to talk to them. I like to create a buyer persona so that when I create the message, I know this is person X. I'll call her Sally, and she dresses a certain way, she drives a certain kind of car, and she uses a certain kind of social media. And now when I talk to Sally, I can actually figure out how I would say it to her. So you may want to segment a little further and look at what helps you so that you're intentional with your message and you're using the right system. You want to strengthen the digital communication and online presence. You want to make sure that you update your website. Place all your important updates on your website and make sure that your website now more than ever is optimized for whether they're using a tablet or a computer or a mobile device. Who's not using their phone nowadays? It's really super important. So think through what your customers might ask during the time or how they're going to access you and try to make it easy for them. If you don't know how to do this, again, I urge you to talk to your UGA SBDC consultant. We're here to help. We have lots of great people who work with us who are actually geniuses at some of this. We have a search engine optimization person. We have a Google expert. We have, I mean, more information than you can shake a stick at, and we want to share it with you. So just make sure that you have a plan and that you are getting with the people that can help you. If you don't know how to get into your own website or you don't have your website developer's information, that may hold you up. You may need to have a backup plan. So you want to make sure that you can access all those different things and develop and update your online business profiles. You need to make sure people know what's going on. Be proactive. Reassess your existing marketing strategy. Is the tone still appropriate for the situation? The graphics? Do you need to maybe look at things a little differently now that this thing has happened? For example, there's a blogger who features social media posts about parents lamenting their kids' hectic sports schedules. The post is likely scheduled, but it appears during a quarantine where families are stuck at home and all the sports are canceled. And the commenters noted that the post seems a bit out of place in a current situation. So people take it as you being callous, and it really wasn't that at all. It's just that it seemed that way. It's like laughing at a funeral. It's just wrong timing. So here's some tips. When a situation is serious, your tone may need to match. When humor typically works well in marketing messages, and we like to laugh, emotional appeals may be better suited for a serious situation. Definitely. Right face, right emotion for the right situation. Consider redistribution of marketing expenditures as your strategy shifts and adapts. Your budget may need to be allocated in different ways. As more people stay home, some brands are seeing an uptick in online searches while others are declining. Some brands are seeing more success with PPC, that's pay-per-click advertising, and others are seeing lower conversion and maybe shifting to other methods for optimal results. And there's always something new around the corner. I have for a few months now laughed about people talking about TikTok, and I thought it was just for kids. It was a relatively new platform. I've seen a lot of funny videos on there, and I even investigated to see, is this something I need to really learn, because do my clients need to know about this? But I thought, it's just for kids. Teens, tweens, all the kids, they're doing all kinds of videos, only internets. I'm being silly now, but whether it was just due to boredom or for sheltering in place or just another opportunity to utilize a social media platform, businesses are now jumping on board. So use this time to be good at it. Make sure that you read your research, go to YouTube, do some video, do some classes, figure out what your new approach could be. Use the new platform the right way, and your messages, they could be served up in a new way to your audience and get them motivated, get them mobile about you. So the point is, communicate regularly with customers, keep the relationships going, make sure that you tell them about your customer support, how you're handling the situation, how you can super serve them, what it is that you're doing to accommodate their needs, the business hours, services, special orders, returns, promotions. Don't sit there and stay silent. Be transparent and authentic. You have to be an answer to the problem. Well, I've said this 100 times, but be responsive, adapt and adjust, adapt, pivot, turn, kind of like a model. It's your chance. So look for the needs that are occurring. And as the situation demands change, look to see if there's a different way or a better way. Grocery stores and other retailers are announcing special shopping hours during a crisis, or they may be setting up pop-up shops. They may be super serving at-risk populations by letting them come in early or doing curbside. I've seen furniture stores, like I said earlier, developing some online shopping marts, having curbside delivery, or even social distancing delivery. There's restaurants that are doing things that have never been drive-throughs or takeouts before. They're doing that. There's lots of innovative ideas. And if you don't have one, then make an appointment with the UGA SBDC and let us help you come up with a few solutions. I mean, I know I, for one, would love to sit down and think tank with you and see what we can do to help jumpstart some sales and get you ready to pivot and turn. Always look for ways to use technology to expand your services. We live in the future. We're a very technical world. So Facebook Live, video, e-commerce sites, payment and services apps, video conferencing, chat boxes, networking, food for thought, drones. Anyway, I'm not sure we're ready, but I'm just thinking, always be thinking of what we can use to our advantage. Is there an app for that? And of course, if you're in retail or really anywhere, image matters. It always matters. Check your appearance. Look what you look like, not only to yourself and to your employees, but also to the outside world. Consider that you both have an online appearance, a physical one. You have to make sure that everything you do is clean, updated, displays information that you want people to know. If you're using a virtual or physical location, make sure it meets your brand standard. Check on multiple devices. Are you optimized for mobile phones? How important are mobile phone users, do you think? When's the last time you used a phone book? I remember when I was a kid, I sat on phone books, the really thick kinds, because I was too short to get to the table. I got a phone book the other day from Atlanta. It was that thick. Atlanta. I was in South Georgia reading on phone books that big, so amazing. Anyway, give customers a new way to shop. Consider offering curbside or other pickup options, delivery. You can organize a special order process to meet their needs, and cross merchandise sell. So bundle it. Do the thinking for them. When I was a kid, I got a great present at Christmas, but my parents didn't buy the huge size D or size C batteries that went in it. So I couldn't play with it until like 3 or 4 days later till they got batteries. It's a bummer. So you need to think about, for your customers, can you bundle something? Can you show them something else? Hey, you're buying this. Maybe you need to also buy this. I just love it when you order pizza and they also offer you the soft drink. Amazon's real masterful about matching up what other customers bought that goes with what you're buying. So maybe you could do that too. Outside of usual, new norm, outstanding. Well, business is not usual. There may be a new norm. There may be lots of new norms, but look for ways to offer your products or services in that new way, a new application for your product. This always reminds me of the Skin So Soft. I don't know if you guys use that, but my mom bought Skin So Soft years ago from Avon. I think I had an aunt or someone who sold it. And so she bought it because it was to help with dry skin. And that's not what we ended up using for. Anybody who's ever lived in South Georgia knows that we have a problem with gnats and mosquitoes. And I'm not sure if Avon ever caught on to their real value as an insect repellent, but avid gardeners and people who fish, they know Skin So Soft is all about some gnat removal. It's better than citronella for keeping mosquitoes away too. So look for what people are using your products for. Can you pivot? Can you market that way? Can your business be virtual? How hard is it for you to offer virtual assistance, curbside service? It's not just for crisis time. That may be when it's needed most, but it could be a life changer, a business changer. Think of super serving your customers. I go to the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A, and there those people are standing outside in line taking my order. There's machines there, but they're outside taking my order. Why are they doing that? Well, they're doing that to be efficient. They're doing that to super serve the customers. They're doing that to keep things rolling and to give the kitchen a little more time to work on things. They're also doing that because they want your commitment. You go ahead and get your order in, you pay them for your order, and then you go through that line and you get your food. You don't leave because you're tired of waiting. I went yesterday and I saw a lady that had pulled over to the side with a huge moving truck, and they walked over to her to serve her and then brought her food to her. It's just super service. And that's what they're known for. They're known for being good to their customers. So you want to make sure that people know you for what you want to be known for. Always look for the way to be the solution. Be cautious, but be proactive and adapt to things as they change. And this concludes the Conquering a Business Crisis presentation. I know I stuttered through it. I had hopes of doing it perfectly, but like most of life, nothing is perfect. I hope that we gave you a lot of great ideas of things that you can do to help your business either prepare for a crisis or recover from or even fortify against a crisis. There's lots of different things that can happen in a business and in our world. The best thing we can do is plan. Plan, plan, plan. I encourage you to reach out to the University of Georgia Small Business Development Center in your area. Your local office is full of great people. I love all of my coworkers, and they're enthusiastic, experienced, knowledgeable, and they're ready to help you. We have lots of great resources. And on behalf of the entire staff and our state office, I want to say thank you for joining us, and good luck. Be safe, be well, be strong. www.georgiasbdc.org is our website. And I just want to say thank you for joining us.